All right, so are you ready to dive deep into this whole performance management thing?
Yeah, I think it's a really hot topic these days.
It's like everyone's talking about it, right?
It is. It's like the new buzzword.
Ditching those old school yearly performance reviews.
Yeah, those are so outdated.
But before we all jump on the bandwagon, let's unpack what it actually means and why you should care.
Right, because it's more than just a trendy term.
It is. So we've got this super insightful article by Herman McGinnis,
Like the beer?
exactly like the
Yeah.
beer, and Jing Bergentine.
They're big names in talent management.
Yeah, they really know their stuff, and they make a pretty compelling case for why those yearly reviews might be doing more harm than good.
Yeah, I'm really curious to hear more about that.
Me too. What's fascinating is this shift away from traditional performance reviews isn't exactly new.
Oh, really?
Remember back in 2012 when Donna Morris at Adobe just up and announced they were ending performance reviews?
Wow, 2012. That's over a decade ago.
Yeah, it was a pretty bold move at the time.
It must have caused quite a stir.
It did. It sparked a whole movement in the world of talent management.
So Adobe was really a pioneer in this area.
They were, and a bunch of other major companies followed suit.
Oh, really? Like,
Deloitte, Microsoft, even General Electric.
wow, some real heavy hitters.
Yeah, they all started to rethink those traditional performance reviews.
I guess they saw the writing on the wall.
They did. The article highlights how a lot of this stemmed from widespread dissatisfaction with those reviews.
Yeah, I can see why both managers and employees found them to be incredibly time-consuming.
Right. And they often felt really negative.
And like a pointless box-checking exercise.
You know, I've been on both sides of those awkward yearly reviews,
Me too.
and I can totally relate. They never felt very productive.
It was always such a relief to get them over with.
Exactly. But is it really that big of a deal?
I mean, aside from the awkwardness, what's the real harm?
That's a good question. Well, Guinness and Bergetian argue that those traditional reviews can have a pretty significant impact on employee morale.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, think about it. They can lower self-esteem,
Hmm.
increase turnover, and even damage relationships within teams.
That's serious.
It is. And it's not just about hurt feelings. There's also potential legal risk.
Legal risk?
How so? The article mentions that the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission saw a surge in discrimination charges that cited information from those very performance reviews.
Wow, I had no idea it was that serious.
Yeah, it's definitely more than just a minor annoyance.
For sure.
There are some serious consequences to consider.
So it's not just about making people feel better, it's
Right.
about protecting the company, too.
Exactly. But what I don't get is why are those traditional reviews so inherently flawed?
That's a great question. It seems like they should work in theory.
Right. You'd think so. Well, for one thing, the authors point to research suggesting that those performance ratings often reveal more about the person giving the rating
Oh, interesting.
than the person being rated.
So it's all very subjective.
It is.
Come
Hold on, are you saying my performance review might just be a reflection of my manager's biases?
Well, it's definitely something to think about.
That's a little unsettling.
It is. It kind of begs the question. If we ditch performance reviews altogether, what do we replace them with?
Right. We can't just get rid of something without having a better alternative.
That's where performance management enters the picture.
So it's not just about scrapping the old system. It's about building something better in its place.
Exactly.
But what exactly is performance management?
And how is it different from what we're used to?
Those are the million-dollar questions.
Let's find out. Well, it's important to understand that performance management isn't just a fancy rebranding of performance reviews.
Okay, so it's not just a new name for the same old thing.
Right. It's a whole different approach.
Okay, I'm all ears. What's the difference?
Think of it this way. Performance management is a continuous process.
I see.
It's about identifying, measuring, and developing performance
Yeah.
in a way that aligns with the company's strategic goals.
So it's not just about looking back at what's already happened. It's about looking ahead and making sure everyone's on the same page.
Exactly. And it's not just a once-a-year event.
It's more integrated into how the organization operates.
It is. It's woven into the fabric of the workplace.
So instead of judging past performance, it's more about guiding future growth.
Yeah,
That sounds a lot more proactive and less about pointing fingers.
exactly. Guinness and Bergetian use this great analogy.
Oh, I love a good analogy.
They compare those failed performance reviews to a canary in a coal mine.
Okay, that's a good one.
They argue that those reviews are like the canary signaling that something's wrong within the organization itself.
Interesting.
So instead of simply getting rid of the canary,
Right. Don't shoot the messenger.
We need to figure out what's making it sick in the first place.
I love that analogy. It really highlights the need to look beyond the surface and address the root causes of performance issues.
It does. But how do we make that shift from the old system to this new performance management approach?
Yeah, that's the big question. What are the concrete steps?
Well, the authors outline 4 key differences between the two.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, there's a shift in how priorities are set.
Okay, how so?
Traditional reviews tend to be static,
Yeah, set in stone?
set at the beginning of the year and rarely revisited.
Oh, I see.
Performance management, on the other hand,
Yeah,
involves ongoing discussions and adjustments of priorities as needed.
that makes a lot of sense. The business world moves so fast these days. Goals and priorities can change rapidly.
Absolutely. The second difference is in the feedback process.
Okay, feedback.
That's a big one.
It is. Instead of that lengthy, formal review once a year,
Right.
performance management emphasizes continuous and informal feedback.
So more frequent touch points.
Yeah, think regular check-ins, quick conversations.
And less emphasis on paperwork.
Less paperwork is always a good thing.
I think a lot of people would breathe a sigh of relief if they could ditch those tedious performance review forms.
I know I would.
So it's about creating a more open and ongoing dialogue around performance. Exactly. And this leads to the third difference, which is the leadership perspective.
Okay. Leadership.
Yeah.
How does that play into it?
Traditional reviews often take a transactional approach focusing on rewards and punishments.
The carrot and the stick.
Right. Performance management encourages a more transformational leadership style.
So less about controlling and more about empowering.
Yeah, where leaders focus on developing their employees' potential and helping them grow.
That sounds like a much more positive and supportive environment where employees feel valued and invested in.
It is. And finally, the role of HR shifts as well.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Instead of being bogged down in administrative tasks,
Yeah, like processing all those forms.
HR becomes more of a strategic partner,
More involved in the big picture.
supporting and equipping both managers and employees.
To embrace this new performance management approach.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm starting to see how this could be a real game changer.
It has the potential to be.
But let's get down to brass tacks. How does this actually benefit people and organizations?
That's the real payoff.
Exactly.
Well, the authors lay out some compelling benefits.
Okay, let's hear them.
For employees, it means clearer expectations, ongoing feedback, and more support for their development.
So they feel more valued, engaged, and invested in their work.
Exactly. They know where they stand, how they can improve, and that their growth matters.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And for managers, what's in it for them?
This approach provides deeper insights into their team's performance.
So they can better identify their top performers?
Exactly. And those who might need additional support.
Okay.
It also allows for more open and effective communication.
Which can help build stronger relationships.
It can. It sounds like a win-win.
It does.
Yeah.
But what about the organization as a whole? What are the benefits there?
The authors point to a number of positive outcomes.
Like what?
Increased employee engagement, reduced misconduct,
Wow, that's significant.
early identification of performance issues.
So you can address problems before they become major issues.
Right. And better alignment with strategic goals.
So everyone's working towards the same objectives.
Exactly. Basically, it creates a more aligned, engaged, and productive workforce.
So everyone benefits from this shift.
They do. But let's get practical.
Okay.
What does an ideal performance management system actually look like in practice?
Yeah. I mean, where do you even begin to implement something like this?
It seems like a pretty big undertaking.
It does. Where do you even start?
Well, Guinness and Bergutian provide a really helpful checklist.
Okay.
8 key characteristics of an ideal performance management system.
Oh, that's useful. Think of it as a roadmap
Exactly.
to create a system that actually works.
Right.
Okay, let's hear it. What should we be looking for?
First up is strategic congruence,
Okay.
making sure individual goals are aligned with team goals
Mm-hmm.
and the overall mission of the organization.
So everyone's rowing in the same direction.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
The second characteristic is meaningfulness.
Okay.
Evaluations should use standards that are relevant
Mm-hmm.
and under the employee's control. And they should happen regularly with plenty of opportunities for growth and development.
So no more judging people on things they can't actually influence.
Right. The third is thoroughness.
Okay.
All employees, including managers,
Yeah.
should be evaluated on all aspects of their job,
Okay.
both results and behaviors.
So a more holistic view.
Yeah, and the evaluation should cover the entire review period with both positive and constructive feedback.
It sounds like it's about getting a more well-rounded view of performance.
It is. The fourth characteristic is inclusiveness.
Okay,
Everyone should have a voice in the process,
I like that.
including the employees themselves.
Yeah, that's important.
Then there's number 5,
Okay.
the identification of both effective and ineffective performance.
Right, so you can see what's working and what's not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The system should clearly show what's working and what needs improvement.
Okay, we're halfway there. What are the last 3?
Number 6 is acceptability and fairness.
Fairness is key.
It is. The system needs to be perceived as fair by everyone involved, both in how decisions are made
Yeah.
and how information is shared.
That's crucial for building trust and buy-in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Number 7 is openness and honesty.
Transparency.
Yes, communication should be two-way, frequent, and transparent.
No more surprises or hidden agendas.
Exactly. And finally, number 8 is practicality.
Okay,
The system needs to be easy to use,
right.
cost-effective, and efficient.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
The authors suggest considering a tool called the Performance Promoter Score,
Oh, interesting.
or PPS. It's
PPS.
actually based on marketing principles.
I see.
I've heard of the Net Promoter Score.
Yeah,
How does this PPS thing work?
it's pretty simple. You ask employees how likely they are to recommend working with a colleague,
Okay.
team, or unit on a scale of 1 to 10.
A simple rating system.
Right. Then you dig a little deeper
Okay.
by asking why they chose that rating
I see.
and what it would take to increase it by 1 point.
So it's like taking the temperature of the work environment
Yeah,
and getting some real-time feedback.
precisely.
Yeah.
And the key is to have these conversations frequently.
So not just once a year.
No, not just during scheduled performance discussions.
Make it a natural part of the workday.
Exactly. It's about creating a culture of continuous feedback and improvement.
I'm starting to see how this all fits together, but let's be realistic.
Okay,
We can't just completely ditch performance measurement altogether, can we?
you're right.
I mean, we still need some way to make decisions about promotions,
Yeah,
salary increases, and things like that.
you're absolutely right. The authors acknowledge that performance measurement still has a role to play.
Okay.
It's about finding that balance between ongoing feedback and development
Right.
and having some form of objective measurement
I see.
to guide those important decisions.
Okay, that makes sense. It's not an either situation.
Right.
It's about integrating the best of both worlds.
Exactly. And I think that's a great takeaway for our listeners.
Yeah, it's not about throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
It's about evolving our approach to performance management.
In a way that benefits both individuals and organizations.
Absolutely.
This has been a super insightful deep dive.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a much clearer understanding of not only what performance management is,
Yeah.
but also why it's so important.
It's been great unpacking all of this with you. It's fascinating how such a seemingly small shift in approach can have such a profound impact on how we work.
Yeah, and how we relate to our work.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So for our listeners who are ready to ditch those outdated performance reviews and embrace this new approach,
Yeah.
what's the one thing they should keep in mind?
I'd say start by asking yourself, what's one small step I can take today to move away from those old practices and create a more engaging and effective performance management approach in my own work environment?
That's a great challenge. And remember, it doesn't have to be a radical overhaul overnight.
Mhm.
Even small changes like incorporating more regular feedback or focusing on employee development can make a big difference.
Absolutely. It's all about taking those first steps and building momentum.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of performance management. We hope you found it as insightful as we did. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.